Whispers of the forest. Jake and Lisa decided to go on a camping trip to escape the hustle and bustle of city life. They chose a remote spot deep in the national forest, far from the usual trails. It was a place where they could disconnect from technology and reconnect with nature. They set up their tent, made a fire, and enjoyed a peaceful evening under the stars. The first night was uneventful, but the second night brought a chilling wind that howled through the trees. As they sat by the fire, they began to hear faint whispers. At first, they thought it was the wind, but the whispers grew louder and seemed to come from the forest itself. They couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like many voices speaking at once. Curious but unnerved, Jake decided to investigate. Armed with a flashlight, he ventured into the woods, leaving Lisa by the fire. The whispers seemed to guide him, pulling him deeper into the forest. As he walked, he noticed strange carvings on the trees, symbols he didn't recognize. The air grew colder, and the whispers turned into a cacophony of voices. Suddenly, he felt a presence behind him. Jake turned, and his flashlight flickered, casting shadows that seemed to move on their own. He saw a figure in the distance, just beyond the reach of the light. It was tall and shadowy, with glowing eyes that seemed to bore into his soul. Panic set in, and Jake ran back to the campsite, only to find Lisa gone. The fire was out and the tent was torn apart. He called out for Lisa, but the only response was the echo of his own voice. The whispers returned, louder than ever, now clearly chanting his and Lisa's names. The temperature dropped further, and the shadows grew closer. In a desperate bid to find Lisa, Jake ran back into the forest, but the shadows enveloped him. The next morning, a search party found the campsite. There was no trace of Jake or Lisa, only the eerie whispers that continued to haunt the forest. Local legends spoke of ancient spirits that protected the land, punishing those who disturbed the balance. Jake and Lisa became another tale of the forest's mysteries, a warning to those who ventured too far from the beaten path. The sunken paradise. Emily, Tom, and their friends had saved up for months to afford a luxury vacation in the Caribbean. They rented a private yacht to explore the islands, diving into the crystal-clear waters and discovering the vibrant marine life. One day, they decided to visit an uncharted island they had heard rumors about, a place locals referred to as the Sunken Paradise. The island was beautiful, with lush greenery and untouched beaches. However, it was the underwater cave system that intrigued them the most. Legend had it that an ancient civilization once thrived there, leaving behind treasures and artifacts. Despite the locals' warnings, they decided to explore the caves. Equipped with diving gear and underwater flashlights, they entered the cave. It was a mesmerizing sight, with stalactites and stalagmites forming intricate patterns. As they swam deeper, they noticed strange carvings on the cave walls, symbols and faces that seemed to watch them. The water grew colder, and a sense of unease settled over them. Emily felt something brush against her leg, but when she turned, nothing was there. The others had similar experiences, but they shrugged it off as seaweed or fish. As they ventured further, they found a large, ornate door carved into the rock. It was covered in the same strange symbols, and there was a palpable energy emanating from it. Curiosity got the better of them, and they pushed the door open. Beyond it was a vast chamber, filled with treasures, gold, jewels, and artifacts from a bygone era. They were ecstatic, snapping photos and marveling at their find. But their joy was short-lived. The water around them began to churn, and a low rumble echoed through the cave. Suddenly, the treasures seemed to come alive. Gold coins floated in the water, forming strange patterns, and the statue's eyes glowed with an eerie light. The group tried to swim back, but the currents were too strong. Emily felt a hand grab her ankle, pulling her down. She struggled, but there was nothing she could do. The others faced similar fates, dragged down by invisible forces. Back on the surface, The yacht's captain noticed the calm waters around the island had turned turbulent. He called for help, but by the time they reached the cave, it was too late. The entrance had collapsed, sealing the group inside. Local legends spoke of the sunken paradise as a cursed place, where those who sought to disturb the resting spirits would be claimed by the sea. The island remained a mystery, a forbidden destination marked by the tragic disappearance of Emily, Tom, and their friends. The locals continued to warn visitors, but the allure of the unknown drew many to their doom. The abandoned carnival. Lucy and her friends were on a road trip along the coast when they stumbled upon an abandoned carnival. It was a decaying relic from a bygone era, hidden away in a small, forgotten town. The rides were rusted, the paint peeling off the old booths, and the air was filled with the scent of mildew and decay. But despite its eerie appearance, the group was intrigued and decided to explore. As they wandered through the empty fairgrounds, they discovered an old fortune-telling booth. The sign above it read, Madame Zelina's Prophecies. Inside, they found a dusty crystal ball and a deck of tarot cards. As a joke, Lucy decided to draw a card. She pulled the death card, which sent a shiver down her spine. The others laughed it off, but Lucy couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. They continued exploring, eventually finding a dilapidated funhouse. The mirrors inside were cracked and distorted, creating grotesque reflections. As they moved deeper into the funhouse, they heard a faint, cheerful tune, the kind you would hear from an old music box. It seemed to be coming from an old carousel in the center of the carnival. Drawn by the haunting melody, they approached the carousel. The once bright paint was now faded, and the horses were chipped and worn. As they stood around it, the carousel suddenly sprang to life. The music grew louder, and the carousel began to spin. At first, they thought it was a malfunction, but then they noticed the horses' eyes glowing an unnatural shade of red. Panic set in as they tried to leave, but the entrance gates slammed shut. The music became deafening, and the carnival lights flickered on, casting eerie shadows. The once abandoned rides creaked and groaned as if awakening from a long slumber. The air grew thick with a malevolent presence, and Lucy felt a cold hand grip her shoulder. She turned to see a figure dressed in an old-fashioned carnival barker's outfit. His face was pale, almost ghostly, with a wide, unsettling grin. He gestured towards the carousel, inviting them to join the ride. The group tried to run, but they found themselves trapped. The ground beneath them felt sticky, as if trying to hold them in place. The barker's grin widened as he whispered, "Welcome to the eternal show." The carousel spun faster, and the world around them blurred. The group screamed, but their voices were drowned out by the music. In an instant, everything went dark. When they woke up, they found themselves back in their car, parked on the side of the road. The carnival was gone, replaced by an overgrown field. Dazed and disoriented, they drove away, but the experience haunted them. They had been warned about the abandoned carnival, a place where lost souls were trapped in a never-ending cycle of terror. No one ever returned the same if they returned at all. The haunting of Sunset Beach. Ben and Claire had planned a romantic getaway to Sunset Beach, a secluded spot known for its stunning sunsets and pristine waters. They rented a small beach house, eager to escape the stress of daily life. The first few days were perfect: swimming, sunbathing, and long walks along the shore. But as their vacation neared its end, strange things began to happen. It started with the old lighthouse at the edge of the beach. Ben noticed it during a late-night walk. It was tall and imposing, its light long since extinguished. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him from the top. The next day, Claire found an old photograph in the beach house. It showed a group of people standing in front of the lighthouse, all wearing old-fashioned clothing. One of the faces looked eerily similar to Ben. That night, they heard strange noises, footsteps on the wooden floors, whispers in the dark, and the sound of a distant bell. Ben brushed it off as the wind and old house creaking, but Claire felt uneasy. She couldn't sleep, feeling as though something was watching them. The following day, they decided to visit the lighthouse. As they approached, they noticed it was in worse condition than it had appeared. The door was ajar, and the interior was dark and musty. They climbed the spiral staircase to the top, where they found an old, rusted lantern. Ben picked it up, feeling a strange sense of déjà vu. Suddenly, the air grew cold, and the room filled with an unnatural fog. The lantern flickered to life, casting an eerie glow. Ben and Claire turned to see a figure standing in the doorway. A woman in a long, flowing dress, her face hidden in shadow. She raised her hand, and the fog thickened, obscuring their vision. When the fog cleared, Ben and Claire found themselves on the beach. The lighthouse was gone, replaced by an old, decrepit shack. They felt disoriented, unsure of what had happened. They returned to the beach house, only to find their belongings packed and the car keys missing. Panicked, they searched the house but found no trace of the keys. The whispers returned, louder this time, accompanied by the sound of the bell. They ran outside, only to see the woman from the lighthouse standing on the shore, her face now visible. It was the woman from the photograph. She smiled, a cold, haunting smile, and gestured toward the sea. The water began to churn, and the tide pulled back, revealing the skeleton of an old shipwreck. Ben and Claire realized they were trapped in a loop, reliving the events of a tragic shipwreck that had claimed many lives, including the woman's. Desperate to escape, they ran back to the beach house. As they approached, they saw the ghostly figures of the shipwreck victims standing in the windows, watching them. The air grew thick with the scent of salt and decay, and the whispers became a deafening roar. In a final attempt to break the cycle, Ben and Claire ran towards the car, only to find the keys on the hood. They jumped in and sped away, not looking back. As they drove, the beach and lighthouse faded from view, replaced by a dense fog. When they finally emerged from the fog, they found themselves back on the main road. The experience felt like a dream, but the old photograph in Claire's pocket served as a chilling reminder. Sunset Beach was more than just a vacation spot. It was a place where lost souls relived their tragic fates, and Ben and Claire had narrowly escaped becoming a part of its haunting history.